There is a custom that is as ancient as the Jewish people. When somebody donates something to a shul, to some organization, they have a plaque made. And on that plaque it says that this object, this Sefer Torah, this library, this yeshiva was donated by so-and-so. And in that way they are immortalized. And in that way they can promote what they've done. Where does this custom come from? And what is the meaning of it? The Code of Jewish Law describes the different levels of tzedakah. This is the famous opinion of the Rambam that there are 8 levels of charity. And the highest level being to provide somebody with a job or a partnership so that they won't need charity. And then he goes down from that to all of the different lower levels. And then the Code of Jewish Law makes the following point. And he says, whatever level you're on, mikol makom, nevertheless, you must never boast about the charity that you give. And if you boast about the charity that you give, not only will you not receive any spiritual reward for that charity, but you'll even be punished for it. Because that's not why we give charity. It's a mitzvah to give charity. It's a mitzvah to look after the different needs of different people. So we're not allowed to boast about the charity that we give. Nevertheless, concludes the Code of Jewish Law as follows. That it is considered to be proper that if you dedicate something to a shul or to some organization, to write your name upon it. And this is a proper thing. Now, one wonders, isn't that boasting? He just said you're not allowed to boast about the charity that you give. So why are you allowed to dedicate it? And this law comes from a very famous Spanish sage, the Rashba, Rabbi Shimon ben Aderet. And the commentators discuss and argue about the meaning of this. Why is it? Why should you write your name on it? So some of the commentators say that it's merely a practical thing. Because if you write your name on that object, the shul or whoever you give the object to are going to think twice about changing it, about selling it off because it has your name on it. So in that way you can just make sure practically that it remains within the confines of the institution to which you donated it. But other commentators say that's not the reason. The reason is a completely different reason altogether. And they point to a very interesting midrash on this week's parsha. The parsha tells us that the brothers of Joseph completely hated him. They were jealous of him. He was trying to lord it over them. He was trying to make it out as if he was the king of the family. He was the most beloved son of Jacob, and they just couldn't stand it. And on one fateful day, suddenly Joseph is approaching, and all of the brothers get together and they say, here comes this dreamer. Let's kill him, throw him into one of these pits, and let's see what becomes of his dreams. And Reuven, the eldest son, stands up and he says, no, let's not kill him. Let's put him in this pit and then we'll decide what to do with him. And Reuven's intention was actually that when all of the brothers were occupied with something else, he would take Joseph out of the pit and return Joseph to his father. He was, after all, the eldest son, and if anything happened, the blame would be pinned on him. So he began the Ma'aseh Hatzalah. He began the act of saving Joseph. He didn't complete it because then he went away and ultimately Joseph was sold as a slave, but his plan was to save Joseph. The Midrash makes the following amazing point, and it says as follows. Had Reuven known that in the Torah it would have said that Reuven saved Yosef from his brothers, had he known it, he would have taken Yosef, put him on his shoulders, and carried him all of the way back to Jacob. Of course, he didn't know that this would be written in the Torah. But had he known otherwise, he would have behaved completely differently. What that Midrash is telling us is that the deeds that we do now are inscribed somewhere. In that case, it was inscribed in the Sefer Torah for all to see. Everybody can see to this day that Reuven, in fact, saved Joseph. He could have done a better job, but everybody sees this. He was inscribed for eternity. That's the idea. So when one does an act of charity, to inscribe your name upon it is almost like saying, here was somebody who did this incredible act. This is inscribed for all time. And perhaps when others see it, they will be motivated to also do an act of charity. And concludes the Midrash and says, and if a person does a righteous deed today, where is it inscribed? The Torah has been written a long time ago. So when we do righteous deeds, who writes it down? And it says, none other than Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet. He writes it all down. And one day it will become known to everybody. So think twice before you consider doing or not doing a righteous deed. Because the thing that you do is going to be inscribed for eternity. And one day, that reward is going to come to you. I wish you a Shabbat Shalom.